Today I'll have to do the introduction since Fred has no internet. And the stories that we'll be covering today, the top news story is that uh, last year, for the first time ever, clean energy sources generated more of the world's energy than coal. That was the first time ever. In technology in EVs, uh, I have a story of a Vietnamese car maker who is now going to start building EVs in North Carolina. And I knew that EVs were going to shake up car manufacturers. And I think this is a real example where you have an unknown Vietnamese company now spending billions of dollars to make EVs in North Carolina. In materials, uh, a story about asphalt. It turns out that they have figured out how to use nanoparticles to improve asphalt road pavement. And this is going to be one of the things that has a positive impact both on the durability of the roads and on the environment. And in flight, Cathay Pacific, reacting to the uh, affairs in Russia, has announced plans for the world's longest passenger flight to avoid Russian airspace. In biology, now we have a CRISPR development that I think people will be for. They're doing a CRISPR kitty that is a hypoallergenic cat. So people with cat allergies can still have a kitty. And in human and brain, they have are discovering things about oleic acid, the acid that is in olive oil that looks like it is the key to the brain's internal fountain of youth. And I'm glad they're finding fountains of youth. I just hope it's not too late for me. And then in health, the story for the week is of a universal flu vaccine candidate, and that would be an enormous impact on the world. So, to start from the top with the clean energy story, excuse me while I adjust my screen. The uh, last year was a big year for non-polluting energies, and last year solar power generation rose by 23%, wind power generation rose by 15%, and overall wind and solar accounted for 10% of the world's energy production last year. The overall clean energy sources, which besides wind and solar include hydro and nuclear, last year were 38% of the world's energy production, and uh, coal was 36%. So this is the good news is this is the first year ever that we got more energy from renewables than we got from coal. The bad news, however, was that uh, because of the increasing energy demands last year, particularly as China was ramping its production up to compensate for the pandemic year, coal energy was at its highest ever last year. And so, there is still, we need more release. And to meet the climate goals they're talking about, wind and solar need to grow for the rest of the decade by 20% a year. That's still pretty fast, but last year was fairly close to it. And so maybe we had 1 year in a row where we are doing what we need to do. The coal power consumption climbed the greatest in China, in India, and China I know has big plans for renewable power. I don't know about India. So anyway, that's what it looks like. What do you guys think? Unmute yourself before you talk.
I noticed for the first time, well, the first time I'd noticed that they have defined nuclear power as clean energy. I remember when I was in college and through the years, we were always anti-nuclear, but over the past, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, I've kind of come around to thinking maybe nuclear isn't such a bad idea after all. But it's defined as clean energy. So that's good.
Yeah, it's kind of clean, and the new
Yeah.
generation is cleaner than the old generation. And I'm sure Germany wishes it had its nuclear energy reactors back online that it took out of service. So, anyway, to me, it seems like an encouraging report, and it's 1 year in a row where we're doing what we need to be doing. And the way we've been going 1 year in a row is a hot streak.
It's still pointing out, though, that energy demand is growing faster than alternative energy installations. And coal and gas are still growing as a fraction of the total energy mix. And it just points out that it's going to take longer than people figured to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. And
Uh huh.
so greenhouse gas emissions will continue. And if that's causing unacceptable uh, climate change, we'll just have to adapt
Mm-hmm. And
to
spend the money
whatever,
and all of that
to
stuff.
whatever
We're
impact.
still making sure that the oil companies are making lots of money. So we're taking care of the important business of the world anyway. Uh, who here has heard of the Vietnamese car maker making the VinFast? Is anyone? Norman, you're up to, on EVs. Have you heard of the VinFast?
Not before their announcement.
Okay. Well, if you actually paid attention to their announcement, then you are a special person. Here, if you haven't seen it, this will be the VinFast. It looks like an EV SUV. It looks to me like it was designed particularly for the US market because that's one of the top selling categories of cars in the US. And it looks like a snazzy EV. And they have announced that they're going to open up a manufacturing facility in North Carolina, and production is planned to start in 2024. It's going to be a big deal. They say they're investing $4 billion in it, which is a lot. It's going to be near Raleigh, North Carolina. They say they will manufacture 150,000 vehicles a year and employ uh, about 7,500 people. Uh, they're getting a big boost from the government, one that amounts to about 20% more than their investment, and in that is going to be $300 million over 30 years of job development money. And they're going to invest also $450 million on roads and infrastructure, stuff that are necessary to support the factory. And it's part, the United Auto Workers say that they have plans to organize and make that unionized, and the UAW, in fact, is going to have a big campaign to unionize Ford and GM in Kentucky and Tennessee. And also, they're going to go after Tesla and going to go after uh, Revan, the startup EV truck maker. And uh, there is other foreign activity going on in North Carolina. Toyota has announced that they're going to build a $1.3 billion battery factory in North Carolina and employ about 2,000 people. And VinFast is a part of a Vietnamese conglomerate, uh, Vin Group, and they already are selling some vehicles in Vietnam, and they are starting up production on the vehicle that we saw the picture of and in their factory in Vietnam, and plan to start importing it into the US in the fourth quarter of this year. So here we're going to have another entry into the EV market, and significant money being spent by an unknown company to start making EVs in North Carolina. And so that's kind of the shape of the commerce coming now.
There are so many organizations that have announced the production and shown prototypes of EV vehicles. It's just incomprehensible
Yes,
how many there are and how many are actually real. Remember Foxconn in Wisconsin?
yes,
Foxconn is a giant producer. But when Wisconsin gave them amazing tax credits, and I think the U.S. federal government also, and Foxconn has done zero or near
yes,
zero.
yes. So we'll see. It's a big announcement, and $4 billion is big money. But you're certainly right. Foxconn shows that you better wait until you see it on the ground. Now, I would believe better Toyota's EV battery plant, because I think Toyota will deliver, and they have many good reasons to build that plant and to build that plant in the U.S.
Although Toyota has been dedicated to hydrogen, not to
Right.
lithium ion.
But they're still spending more money on their lithium ion plant than they are on their hydrogen plant.
If
And
you
with
don't
it,
already subscribe to Consumer Reports, it's worth buying their April issue because it's their annual auto issue. And they have
ah,
quite a good write-up on the electric vehicle choices people have.
and there
But
are
they
a
did,
lot of them.
yeah, the Vietnamese outfit was not mentioned, I guess, because they don't have anything actually for sale yet.
Right. But again, part of my point is the cost of entry into EV manufacturing is a lot lower. And because of that, uh, we're going to see companies that we've never heard of going big time into the business. And this Vietnamese automaker manufacturer is an example of that. And you don't know, I don't know who's going to succeed in these turbulent markets, but you know, somebody is going to.
Well, yeah, but around in the early 1900s in the United States, every garage mechanic offered automobiles that they made.
Hmm.
And I think with EVs, we're kind of in the same situation. Uh, Anybody can roll out EVs with a comparatively low investment, but that doesn't mean they're going to succeed.
Hmm. That's right. That's what I say. We don't know who's going to win and who's going to lose. We know Tesla looks like a winner because they're already so far ahead. You know, some of these other companies like Toyota, who makes so many cars, they're going to figure out how to succeed, and I think they'll succeed even though they have burdens now. And I suspect maybe either Ford or GM will survive. I'm not sure both of them will.
But amazingly enough, Tesla has a greater valuation than Ford plus GM.
Right. That's right. Well, they value it based on futures. Now, when you were talking about this stuff happening 100 years ago, you reminded me of a personal family story that my great grandfather uh, moved from Chicago to Dallas in 1913 and started up a buggy repair shop in Dallas, and the time we saw him next in photographs was in the 1920s, and he had a gas station, so he had given up on buggy repairs as his business.
The Wall Street Journal had an article on buggy whips.
Uh huh.
You would have thought that buggy whip manufacturing was a dead business, but apparently with changing sexual mores, the buggy the buggy whip manufacturers actually increased their production. They weren't
Okay.
just selling to museums that had buggies.
Okay, so they have figured out an alternate product use. As an ex marketing type, I have to say that sounds very clever. Give your product a new life. Okay, anything else on buggy whips or EVs? No, so let's go on. And uh, the next story is one of the particular kind of stories that I like because it's got several elements that are, I think, important. One part of it is some individual seeing uh, the need for change and for using what is ordinarily trash and turning that into something that is useful. And uh, it also is something to deal with all this terrible waste plastic. And it also is something where the creator of all of this uh, to some people would be surprising. Here is a uh, picture of the founder of this company, and this is Nazambi Mati, who is a 30-year-old engineer from Kenya, and she is an inventor, and she has invented this process where she takes throwaway plastic and shreds it and mixes it with sand and heats it up and makes it into this slurry, which she then uh, molds into these bricks that you see here. And so comparing these bricks to the conventional bricks, these bricks are half the weight, they're much stronger, and they're 10 or 15% cheaper. So all you get from this waste material is stronger, more durable, longer lasting, and cheaper. So it seems like that could be a successful product. She presently produces 1,500 bricks a day. Her company doing this supports about 100 people. That includes people who are gathering plastic and separating plastic. Right now, one of the problems that she's dealing with is there are a number of different types of plastic that are in the trash stream, and only about half of those kind of plastics can be shredded for this application. One of the big kinds that can't yet is PET, which the plastic drink bottles are made out of. They're working on something to be able to do PET bottles, and uh, they are also uh, this year they're trying to move into house construction, and they plan to build their first residential property out of these plastic built bricks later this year. So here is this inventive woman. The machinery that is used to make these bricks, by the way, she invented herself and made out of equipment that she could find in Kenya. And she's made a company that is successful now, employs 100 people. It looks like they're going to double this year in terms of brick production. And she is taking uh, what is a trash product that contaminates the environment and uh, making something very useful out of it, and in doing so has made an enterprise that supports a bunch of other people. So good work. Any comments?
I hope she's very successful.
Me too.
I
And
always
yet,
wonder why, I always wonder why the technologies like this, the low tech type don't get transferred a lot faster than seems to be the case.
mhm.
Maybe some international economic development agency will be able to move the idea around
Maybe,
and give her credit too.
that's right. But I bet that they don't have a lot of venture capitalists hanging out in Nairobi. And one of the way that these things move fast is when VC looks at it, decides it's got great potential, and pours a bunch of money into it.
I've,
And
I've got, I've got a doubt here. We make bricks throughout the world with clay. Why would we take something that's so energy rich as plastics and use them in lieu of bricks? Should we not use the energy content of the plastics?
maybe right now she's taking them out of the trash stream, though, and she's taking them out of the trash stream because that's where they are, and where they were going to go if she didn't take them out of the trash stream was the dump.
And she's got 100 people making 1,500 a day. That works out to 15 bricks per person. So
That's right.
it's not a,
It's not a high production operation, and it
yeah,
has to be in a place where you can afford the labor costs. So you're not going to do it in Dallas, Texas. Okay. So the next story I have is a material story, and hopefully, this is a material story that people can relate to better than some of these nano stories that I have. And now they have developed using some nano mineral composites a new way to make asphalt that is cleaner and less polluting. And this is a binder that is in a new class of asphalt that is called warm mix asphalt, as opposed to the hot asphalt that has is generally used. And this additive uh, reduces energy consumption and at the same time makes the uh, asphalt more durable. So it cuts the energy and lasts longer, so you don't have to use as much energy replacing it. And uh, this is a positive enough kind of development that Highways UK is uh, increasing their adoption of uh, this kind of asphalt, which is called warm mix asphalt or WMA asphalt, and they're going to use it across the supply line in the UK. And they think if they are able to use this for all of their ongoing asphalt needs, that the reduced carbon from the asphalt process will be the equivalent of reducing 300 million miles of driving around, burning gas and putting CO2 atmosphere. So you don't think about asphalt and the CO2 emissions of asphalt much, but here they are making a change into how asphalt is made that is going to save uh, a lot of CO2. This is about 50,000 tons of CO2 a year. And again, one of the things I think that is real positive about this approach is the resultant asphalt is more durable and so does not have to be replaced as often. replacing your asphalt road is a real expensive process, and something that helps there also reduces the overall transportation cost. So I think it's a win-win. So let's hear it for engineered nanomaterial composites. Now, come on. Okay, here you are, Andrew. I see your face. I saw you raise your eyebrow. Uh,
I don't have anything to add. It sounds okay to me.
okay, I'm glad.
What are the unintended consequences? Who knows?
Uh huh. Well, they'll have to find something to do with all that old asphalt.
Old asphalt is remelted.
Uh huh.
And as I understand it, they still have the heavy petroleum component. It's just they're using the nanomaterials to replace some other minerals in the typical asphalt mix.
Right. Anyway, there are still developments that are happening on many fronts that contribute to what we're trying to do in the world, which is to figure out how to operate and generate less CO2. And some of the developments are not in areas that you would expect. And this is one of those things that maybe will contribute to a less bad future. The next story is kind of a political story and an air flight story, and Cathay Pacific has now announced that they're going to be having the world's longest passenger flight. It'll be from New York to Hong Kong. It'll take almost 18 hours. It'll cover about 10,000 uh, 400 miles, about 40% of the way around the planet. And they are changing the routing of the flight to avoid its flying over Russia because for some reason uh, these Western companies don't like flying over Russia as much as they used to. And this makes me wonder what do they have to do to get a plane that could fly halfway around the world? Because if you could fly halfway around the world nonstop, then doesn't that mean you could fly anywhere? Because halfway around the world is as far as you have to fly.
They wind up hauling more fuel and less freight and less passengers.
Right. So the seat cost would go up.
It's still remarkable. They were flying 3 return flights a day from New York City to Hong Kong.
Uh huh.
That's just Cathay Pacific. There were other ones too.
There's a lot of flights. And now the other thing is, I've when I lived in India, I was taking flights that I would spend 14 or 15 hours in the air coming from, we'd fly from India to Dubai and there from Dubai to San Francisco. And that's an awfully long time to be in a plane. And these things are going to be almost 18 hours. So I hope they have a lot of movies. Okay, so no more flyers. This one, maybe somebody will like this one. Uh, Researchers at a company in Bio, which was formerly Indoor Biotechnologies, which is a biotech research company in Virginia, reports progress on their hypoallergenic cat. And about 15% of the population suffers from cat allergies and so cannot have their domestic kitty. And as they have analyzed the problem, there is an allergen called FELD1 that is shed by all cats that seems to be the problem with this allergy. And these researchers then looked at this particular FELD1 uh, and the best they can tell, this is not critical to cat survival. They looked at different feline species, and the amount of this protein varies broadly between different species, so it does not seem to be essential. So they have used CRISPR tools and done a genetically modified cat, and it looks like that they are able to now produce cats which do not produce this FELD1 protein, and I'm sure they're going to have to do further testing. I know in a lot of this kind of testing, they use rats to test before they do humans. Will they use rats to test for cat allergies? I don't know. If they do, it would be at least amusing. But uh, maybe there is hope coming for those people who have cat allergies and want to have cats anyway. I know some people who have cat allergies and still have cats and take their allergy medicine and love their cats. Now maybe they won't have to take the medicine. Come on, all you cat lovers. I'm not getting much response. Now, if we had Fred here today, he would figure out clever questions to be able to ask.
Well,
So,
I can't be clever, but our cat is sitting here listening to this, and she's very happy to hear this.
okay, that's good. That's good. Well, it's all for your kitty, and it's for people like you who love cats. Would you have a cat even if you were allergic?
The first cat we ever got, we brought it home on loan because from a lady I worked with because I knew I didn't want a cat. And I was so sick by the time we got it home in the car that I swear, I swore that I was never going to have it. Well, can you get rid of an allergy overnight? I don't know.
Uh-huh. Okay. But it sounds like the cat has found a good home, even though uh, you didn't know you were ready for it. Okay. The next story is about our brains, and many people dread the possibility of memory disorders such as Alzheimer's or depression or these related things. And uh, researchers have been searching for ways to treat all of these. And uh, these researchers at Baylor College of Medicine maybe have discovered a missing piece in the puzzle. And researchers have known for a while that oleic acid, OLEIC acid, uh, which is produced by the brain is an essential regulator of processes that affect learning and memory and uh, decision making in the brain. And uh, they have hoped to find processes that will be able to make use of this. And these researchers have found that there are some brain regions that have that regenerate new neurons so that as you age, you still maintain your mental capability. And one area that they found that does generate new neurons is the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is the part of the brain that enables learning and memory and mood regulation for adults. And having learned about this, there's some scientists who kind of envision uh, this capability as maybe a mental fountain of youth instead of what we have now with increasing age, the neurogenesis deteriorates and we have problems maintaining our mental skill level. So, what they found was they knew that there was some kind of master regulator for neurogenesis, and what they found was a uh, protein in neural stem cells called TLX that is activated by this oleic acid, and that it looks like when this is activated, then the brains then start to generate new neural cell growth, and these uh, brain conditions start to be moderated. Now, the this is the kind of oil that is in olive oil. And when I first read this, I was encouraged that, as you read things about diet, they encourage consumption of olive oil, and that's been the main oil that we've used in our household for years because of these recommendations. And I was hoping, hey, since we're taking olive oil, then it means that takes care of my brain function. It turns out the oleic acid that comes from olive oil, they think it has problems passing the brain blood barrier, and the oleic acid that you need is already made by the brain. And so, what they're encouraged about is having discovered the mechanism that is behind this neurogenesis, that now they have what they call a druggable target of this ITX that they can maybe find ways to be able to improve the functionality by a drug, and we know that they like drugs that they can sell to all us whole people, so they're encouraged to develop it.
I was wondering, does anybody know the process once it becomes a druggable target? Does that mean it's a year away or 10 years away or
I
next
think
week?
it's likely to be 10 years away because to be a druggable project target, then it means all they have to do is to figure out a drug that works, and the drug has to be a little tricky because the drug has to get past this blood brain barrier, and not every drug can do it. And then once they have one that works, then we have the uh, cellular testing, then animal testing, then human phase 1, 2, and 3 testing. And if they knew what the drug was today, all that testing and stuff would still take 5 years unless it's something major like a pandemic killing millions of people. We can do that faster sometimes.
That's what I was
I'm,
afraid of.
yeah, I'm paying a lot of attention to something like this in terms of regenerating stem cells in the retina.
Yes.
And it is, the things have been, it's been developed, it's there, but the thing that is holding it up is delivery mechanisms. So not only do you have to have a drug that works, you have to have some way to get it there without having it destroy other stuff.
Right.
So,
Right.
and it's, I mean, it's already taken years, so it's
Yes.
coming.
And for macular degeneration, that is a common enough and severe enough malady where there is lots of pressure on the development of this drug, I'm sure. My mother had it severely enough where she was declared blind, and it was hard for her because she, since she was a little girl, had been a reader. And what she was doing at this time is reading in her dreams. And it shows how committed she was to reading. She was also a writer, and she was great at plotting things, and I bet her dream books were well plotted.
That's a nice story. I wish she had some of the technology that we have available now.
Me too, me
It's a
too.
lot better.
Yeah, it was a real problem. Okay, and uh, the last story today is about a universal flu vaccine candidate. And this is a case where scientists have leveraged what they're calling a novel vaccine platform. And I don't know what that means, but they use it several times in the article. And they're using it to trigger long lasting immune responses that could protect effectively against multiple strains of the flu. And, the flu has been a major public health problem at least for the last 100 years, and we have seasonal influenza affects between 13 and 100 million people annually, with 5 million cases of severe illness and 300 to 600,000 deaths every year. So it's a big deal around the world. And also, over the past century, there have been at least four devastating pandemics caused by the influenza A strain that have killed, they say, hundreds of millions of people. So we don't give the flu a lot of attention with coronavirus, but it is still a substantial worldwide problem. And uh, vaccination, like with coronavirus, seems to be the most effective preventative measure. And, as we're doing it now, it requires annual updates for this year's strain, and sometimes they pick the wrong strain and stuff like this. And so there is much interest in uh, making uh, universal flu vaccines, and now it looks like that they may have made headway with it. What they have found is there is a peptide, the MAE peptide, which can be a universal flu candidate. They're using this new vaccine platform to deliver this peptide to immune cells, and they have shown that a single shot immunization containing this peptide was able to trigger long-lasting immune responses that were effective against multiple strains of the flus. And particular with this, they found that it was particularly effective in protecting immune responses for people who had previous flu immunity. And with folks like us who've been around all these years, we have already had these flus. We already have immune reactions to the flus, and apparently, this vaccine for people who have had previous flu experiences makes their existing immune responses much greater. So it looks very encouraging. This is still in early testing, but if this is approved, this will reduce the need for the annual vaccinations. And also, this approach to making vaccines removes the needs for these adjuvants, which are the substances that are added to a vaccine to help deal with the body's immune responses to make the vaccine effective. These are one of the things that are very involved in producing side effects. So if these are reduced from the vaccines, then it'll reduce the side effects of these vaccines too. They are looking at this general technique and wondering if they're going to be able to figure out some approach with universal COVID vaccine, but who knows?
An
That would.
interesting problem in the US. In Mexico, flu vaccine is free to everybody. In the United States, people had to pay big bucks to get flu vaccine, which not only avoids their catching flu, but contagion other people. And in the US, we run an average of 50,000 people a year dying from influenza.
Uh-huh.
It could be dramatically reduced if we had a flu vaccination program like we developed for COVID.
Yes.
Universal, free.
Yes. Maybe that sounds like public health.
Well, in Alberta, the annual flu vaccine is free, but people still won't take it.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe 50% of the people take it.
Interesting.
But Andrew, it makes us older people more vulnerable to serious illness when other people don't take it. It's a
Yeah.
big issue, societally, morally.
Only for us old people. If you're young people, you don't care. Unless you have old parents.
One of the things about this new vaccine treatment is it may give new meaning to the Me Too movement.
I hope so.
Because this Me Too is an internal amino acid chain inside the flu virus, and conventional vaccines work on the surface characteristics
Right.
of the virus that change every year. So if they can get one that works on this internal business,
Yes.
then they're away to the races.
Absolutely, because that does not change. And with the coronavirus, too, there are internal parts that are consistent with all the variants. So I'm sure that's the kind of thing they're targeting. And still, as I think about what we have done with the vaccines, it still supports my contention that this century, the biggest news in this century is going to come out of the general area of biology. And we are learning so much about this, and that, to borrow from an expression, there has to be a pony in there somewhere. Okay, hello there. Hello, Keaton. You discovered that we're on a different daylight changing this week than we were last week. And I'm happy to see you, but I'm sorry we had to meet this way.
There, the debate, do we want to change from daylight savings time to standard time? Hawaii and Arizona have solved that problem. They don't change.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Mexico used to
unfortunately,
change at the same time the US did. But then the US changed when they changed, and Mexico didn't vary.
Right.
yeah, at the time you guys started, unfortunately, I was making breakfast, and there's no way I could have joined you. It was breakfast and then one thing and another. So sorry.
Anyway, it's good to see you, even if it's just en passant.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Okay.
have sent you an email, Richard, asking you to add me to the list,
Okay.
emailing list,
Very good.
so
I
that
will do
I
so.
don't I don't have to bug Norman every week to send me the
Okay.
topics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happy to do so, and good to see everybody. And that's what we have for this week. And now that Keaton joined us, we'll go away.
Thank you.
You have good cause.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks again,
All
Richard.
right.
Okay. Adios. Good to
Thank
see
you,
you
Richard.
all.
Goodbye now.